what does good or average marketing look like, specifically in terms of numbers? Because companies do marketing very differently depending on who they're selling to, how big they are, and what channels are important to them.
And so if everyone's doing the same thing, if everyone's using the same channels and the same kind of techniques and tactics, they're not going to be effective anymore.
I don't want to sort of fearmonger, but we're effectively in a B2B SaaS recession or at the cusp of it.
If only 20% is really spent with sales teams, but you're spending 70% of your go-to-market resource on sales, well, that's a problem.
So I'm going to say something a little bit sort of maybe controversial, but
bring it.
Yeah, I don't think AI is going to change the way that people are measuring much. And not because AI is not this innovative way. It's think of it this way. I think AI would make a good marketer better and a mediocre marketer will stay mediocre.
I mean, you look at SEO, the traffic's down significantly because people are on websites much less. You look at PPC and just the conversion and the efficiency rates are down significantly. So it's just like, hey, the incremental dollars don't make sense. And just search volumes down as well. You look at big trade shows, it's like, you're not getting the yield there either.
There was an era where, when we were getting better at digital, where you could do more with less, where you could put out more content and you could get more ads and you could personalize things. And there's a lot of good technology that helped us do that. I think we've reached the limit of doing more with less.
Welcome to the Spark of Ages podcast. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of one of my favorite subjects, which is go-to-market Moneyball. It's how data-driven insights and tactics from inside the marketing and sales trenches are revolutionizing the way companies drive growth in an AI world. This conversation isn't about incremental campaign improvements. We're talking about rethinking how you build go-to-market engines and about building strategies that deliver results where traditional playbooks are now falling apart. Two amazing guests today, huge experts in this field. AJ Gandhi is a distinguished go-to-market leader and an executive community builder. He's the co-founder of the Go-to-Market Leader Society and recently served as Chief Growth Officer for Marlin Equity Partners and held significant roles at Salesforce, RingCentral, Bain, and McKinsey. He's also on the board of a number of firms, including Plum Acquisition Corp. AJ is an alumnus of UC Berkeley and Harvard Business School. Omar Akhtar is the founder and principal analyst at Benchmarker, leading research on marketing excellence for B2B technology. Previously, he was head of research at Altimeter, where he advised Fortune 500 companies, including Microsoft, Salesforce, Adobe, and Netflix on marketing, data, and content strategies. Omar got his undergrad degree in economics from Ohio Wesleyan and then got a master's in journalism from Columbia. Gentlemen, welcome to the Spark of Ages.
Cool. Rajiv, great to be here.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. Well, Omar is in the Bay Area right now, and AJ is currently having an amazing trip in Italy. So thank you for joining us late at night from Tuscany.
Greetings from Florence.
Firenze. There you
go. Buenos Aires. Lots of good pizza and pasta and filling my tummy every night.
Lots of wine.
And gelato.
Gelato. Oh, my God.
And you never feel full. That's the amazing thing about it. You never feel full out there. It's fantastic.
Italy, will you not feel full?
Probably drunk, Omar. It's like, the Italian wine is good. The Chianti Classico makes all your problems go away.
I'm melting away. All right, let's define go-to-market a bit. What does it mean? It's really this evolution that's occurred where we are taking sales, marketing, customer success, and even product, where everyone works together to get the solution to market and works together to build growth and understand what customers are saying. It's like we had Chandar, who's now Chief Go-to-Market Officer at Workato, previously on our episode. So there's even people taking that on as a title. And so it's a real amazing movement. And we're just love having two amazing leaders in the space. So Omar, I'm going to start with you. You have recently published the 2025 B2B SaaS Marketing Spending and Performance Benchmarks Report, and it provides a unique data-driven look into the current state and future direction of go-to-market strategies. So maybe you can help us set the stage and talk about what your core findings are, key takeaways, anything that challenges conventional wisdom, just highlight key areas of innovation.
Yeah. So just to give you a bit of context, my company Benchmarker, I formed it to take on specifically the marketing portion of that go-to-market cabal that you're describing. And what I really wanted to do was to figure out a couple of things. One, what does good or average marketing look like, specifically in terms of numbers? Because companies do marketing very differently depending on who they're selling to, how big they are, and what channels are important to them. And I wanted to be able to give them that data to say that, okay, if you're this type of company, this is what marketing or good marketing looks like for you. I didn't think that there was a one size fits all sort of way of doing things. And so I go out there, I collect data, I do interviews, I do surveys of different companies, and I split that data. And I do it across a variety of topics. At the beginning of the year, I looked at budgets, then I looked at performance metrics, and I'm looking at things like AI adoption and how that's going to affect things like headcount and a few different components. What I found with the two most recent surveys that I did, one on budgets and spending and then one on marketing performance, was that we're effectively, I don't want to sort of fearmonger, but we're effectively in a B2B SaaS recession or at the cusp of it. And what that means is that the growth rates that we were used to, which used to be north of 30%, the median growth rate now is 11 to 20%. And so the companies that are doing better than that are in the north of 20%. That's a big decrease from when I did the survey last year, 21 to 30%.
That's pretty recent, right? It's a pretty recent change. Like AJ's talked about this, explosive growth post-pandemic, and post-pandemic, explosive growth. And now things have cooled tremendously.
Yeah, I think that's part of the whiplash for this. And AJ, I'd love to kind of see your perspective on this, where things went so fast and so hard, and then AI comes onto the scene and everyone thinks it's going to be this big sort of SaaS renaissance. But what we're seeing is a lot of contraction. Now, part of it is I think that a lot of incumbents have just grown big, and big companies don't grow very fast. They grow at around 10%. That's about healthy for big companies. But the thing that was concerning to me is that half of these companies are below 50 million in annual revenue, and they're not growing at the rate that you would expect them to. There's a few different factors there. But that was sort of the big finding to me. The second one was that we're also in an era of marketing inflation, where the same amount of spending gets you worse results. And so where companies are spending, more amounts on their channels like LinkedIn, like Google, and on email marketing, but cost per lead is going up, but the amount of leads that they're getting back and the conversions they're getting, the rates are even lower. Part of that is saturation. Part of that is just the channels that they're on just don't work as well as they used to. And that's a real reality that we're facing for if you're a SaaS executive and if you're a SaaS marketing executive in particular, which is you have to know the kind of scenario that we're operating in right now. It's not what it used to be, and that requires a different playbook.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of market problems out there right now. So I would concur, Omar, as well. I think the biggest one is, look, there's been a huge amount of consumption of SaaS products. And if you look at any mid-sized enterprise company, how many different SaaS applications do you have? Even within a function, finance, sales, marketing, the number is incredibly voluminous. And so that's one problem, is there's already a ton in the tech stack. Another problem is many of these tools don't actually work well together. So you may have all these tools, but because the information and data isn't shared amongst the tools, they're actually not that effective. I think the third thing that we're seeing actually is commoditization. So you can look at certain categories and just see, hey, what used to be a best of breed play that was superior, look in the forecasting space, look in the sales engagement tool space. So forecasting, Clary dominated. Sales engagement, you had SalesLoft, you had Outreach dominating. You looked at conversational intelligence, you had Gong, and you before had Chorus. And these were individual tools, and you could go out and those companies would sell them for $150 per month per user. And they all got big. They got to 200-300 million. But a big issue that they found is that suddenly, Gong has built all this functionality for all three categories. You've got companies like Aviso that have cropped up, and they've built all these things, plus, customer success tools and plus many new AI tools, and they're actually undercutting the market dramatically. So you're seeing the market price for these tools just drop by 50 to 60%. And so you combine all these factors, plus that's where you got a problem. The last thing I would just say, and I really do think it all starts with the buyer, is look, you don't compete against other people in your quote micro category. You're actually competing for the attention, for the relevance of the persona of your ICP. And there are just dozens and dozens of companies going after that persona. So it's just noise. And buyers are just more discerning because they bought so much.
Yeah, you're probably seeing similar things in the research, right? You're seeing that the buying groups are, because of this proliferation of software packages, the buying group has gotten larger, right? I think Forrester talked about it earlier this year, where the buyer group has now moved from 6 people to as much as 14 people, right? And because there's so many things, it touch so many functions, and before you want to deploy something, you want to make sure it's going to truly work in your environment. You just don't want to accumulate these gigantic tech stacks.
Absolutely. And I love the point that AJ just made about competing for attention, because that's really the problem. Head-to-head competition, it's not as much of a concern. It's just like getting into the inbox of the person that you're trying to talk to. And part of that is because we've sort of lowered the barriers to entry for messaging, and AI has sort of made it easier for us to put content out at scale. And if you think about the average executive, and I talk to them, and I'm sure you guys are part of this, think of how many messages you get every single day. And those are just the software sales messages. This isn't even counting all the other advertising that you're seeing just on your commute to wherever you're going. And that's a real reckoning for marketers who are tasked with the sole purpose of getting through to people. And when the product market is saturated, but the messaging channels are very, very saturated. And breaking through is the one thing that the research is showing, which I'm happy to talk about, is what's old is new again. The stuff that you can't scale is the stuff that's working. The events, the in-person, the one-on-ones, that highly proprietary piece of data that you release as thought leadership, that's the stuff that's breaking through. And increasingly, that's the kind of tactical growth that we're going to see is in those areas.
So your digital spend, your LinkedIn cost per lead or cost per connect is going up, right? And just because people are seeing more of these things and they're not clicking. And so you need to find ways to connect with people more intimately. So are you seeing a shift towards events from the spend data, from the marketing spend data?
Yeah, it's going up. So I think the median was around 18 to 20%, but on the high end, people are spending 30% of their marketing program budgets on events. And the thing that was interesting when I talked to them, it doesn't necessarily mean big marquee events. What we find is that they're spending on sort of smaller boutique events where they're getting together a few executives, prospects, and very intimate affairs. Kind of like what you guys do with Go-to-Market Society, which I got to say is a really great blueprint for how to do this thing, where you're getting authentic conversations. It's not overly salesy. There's a lot more listening than talking. Companies that are investing in that are raving about the results, whereas you're like, yeah, if you get people together, give them a good time, why wouldn't they be engaged, right? It seems simple, but it's like, oh, people are waking up to it now.
When they're raving about results, is it because they feel good going to the event, or are they actually seeing it in their movement into opportunities?
Absolutely moving at opportunities. I mean, think of it the same way. I went to an event. It was, there was a vendor there that was sponsoring the event, and they did the event, and it was a nice enough event. They weren't very pitchy, but I'm going to take their follow-up call because, why wouldn't I? They were nice enough to call me over. That's just kind of human nature. If I eat your food, I'll take your call. So in the smallest microcosm of things, it's harder for people to reject you when they've seen your face. And if you take that principle and try to scale it, you'll see that that's where most of the marketing is working today.
That's amazing. I mean, this is definitely something you've really built up, AJ.
Yeah, and I think there are a couple of things to kind of get into here. So the first one is related to kind of what tactics are working in demand gen. And look, marketing at the end of the day is about being differentiated as a way of actually kind of engaging a prospective customer or your existing customer. And so if everyone's doing the same thing, if everyone's using the same channels and the same kind of techniques and tactics, they're not going to be effective anymore. I think this is where, Udi Ledergor and his courageous marketing has done a nice job. It's like the unique programs. That's what really works. And that's why what's old is new again really applies. I think what you also have to do is, when you are engaging people, part of the reason I came in at the end of that dinner that you were a part of, and, the solution provider definitely, created a nice quality experience, but they also provided, some really tangible value. What they did for every company that attended, this is a solution provider that's doing kind of SEO and kind of LLM search optimization.
AEO.
Yeah, AEO, GEO, whatever you want to call it. AEIOU, EIEIO.
We had a whole show on that a little while ago.
Good.
And we've had Udi on the show too, so yes.
For those kinds of things. So, that company did an assessment for every attendee, and they actually had it be a printed out kind of asset. It was given to everybody. So I think the reciprocity principle does apply, as Omar highlighted. But, I think it goes back to some core principles. These come back from like Craig Rosenberg and Topo days. It's like you want to be tailored, relevant, and have a high value offer. So that's what kind of engages people.
That's great. I think one of the things you've definitely talked about, AJ, is the notion about proactively educating the market, shaping a category. right? You've brought folks on that will help you differentiate from the sea of sameness. There's that positioning and there's that understanding. So maybe you can describe some of that. And then how do we benchmark the value of that? You were at Marlins, you had 50 companies in your portfolio, and you do a positioning exercise. And then from that, you look at the spends in marketing and sales and all that. So talk about how folks are creating, basically educating the market, shaping a new category, and then selling into it based on differentiated positioning.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with just why does your problem matter, and making sure that you're truly understanding, hey, if you're trying to sell into financial services, mid-sized financial services companies or enterprise, manufacturing companies, like what do they really care about? Is it inventory management? Is it compliance? Like, why is this an executive level priority? I think the problem that most companies are having today, and the reason that all the marketing metrics and sales metrics, frankly, are just tanking, is because you're selling it to a mid-level buyer with a solution for which there are other competitors. And that's not your only competition. You're also competing against, 5 to 7 other categories of potential spend that same target persona could have. So yes, they could spend it on compliance software. They could spend it on financial reporting software. They could spend it on, some sort of tax software or workflow software. It's like, well, which one do you pick? So, well, what matters and why? And so I think this is where it comes to the positioning and messaging challenge. So you really want to be selling the problem and really elevating the importance of solving that problem to the executive buyer. I'll give you an example. There's a company that I spent a lot of time with in the past year, and it provides service supply chain software. Okay, well, who cares about service supply chain? This is kind of like the
so sexy.
It's super sexy, right?
I'm just getting.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
hair standing on end here.
Well, guess what? That operations manager for service supply chain, you got to imagine they're the most powerful person in a company, right? It's like in these billion-dollar manufacturing companies. However, when you actually take a step back and you actually really understand, okay, well, what's the problem that's actually at stake here? What we were going after was aftermarket supply. And that is, hey, if a piece of equipment breaks, how long does it take for you to get replacement parts out to, make that equipment operational again? Imagine that you're like a 10, 20, $50 billion company with thousands of products all throughout the world that we've produced over the last 40 years. Imagine you're a Honeywell, imagine you're, an American Airlines, imagine you're, a Dell. Think about the complexity of figuring out, well, what spare parts do I need? Where do I need them? And how do I get them out there such that I can get that customer up and running again? Let's say it's imaging machines, these very expensive multi-million-dollar imaging machines. If that imaging machine is down, I have to cancel all these appointments as a doctor.
Huge losses.
It's not just lost revenue, it's actually like life's at risk as well.
It's poor service for your patients, right?
Exactly. But, that inventory carrying cost, you could be carrying hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in inventory. So what's the right level and where do you put it? So it's not just a cost issue. It's also very much a service and customer satisfaction issue. And then the issues can be even broader. When you elevate it up that way, it actually becomes a much higher value problem.
When you're elevating it like that, you're finding particular places where that persona is really going to care. And then you were highlighting that, right? You're saying to them, hey, if you don't solve this problem, here's the big problem. If you don't solve this problem, you could be out of a job. Right?
Well, it's actually much higher than that because, great, services director feels, but do they have the budget? Do they have the IT priority?
So you have to make it an executive level?
Yeah, you want to get to, at the very least, sort of the FP&A lead for kind of manufacturing to help them recognize, hey, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of working capital that's being wrapped up in inventory costs. And there's actually even extra costs. Well, let's say I'm trying to go fix something and I don't have the part. Well, that's an extra truck roll. And that may take an extra few days and extra. So there's big expense there as well. What's it take to actually get that fixed? And then there's the customer experience factor as well. So when you roll all those things up and you actually take it to an executive level, then you actually start to hit very large numbers. And that's the kind of education that you need to go to those senior executives and highlight, hey, these are problems that exist. And how are you managing them? And it kind of helps when, someone like McKinsey or Bain, writes a report that actually documents this. And so this can be part of the play as well as, hey, let's get experts to validate that this is a multi-hundreds of $1 million problem that really needs to be an executive priority. And so those are the kinds of ways that, once people recognize they have the problem, then they'll engage much more than just saying, hey, this is going to be better inventory management.
And at that point, the more exclusive event actually adds more value. Exclusive event with the right kind of targeting. If you can make it high enough level, right, as a
Sure.
problem, then you can have that amazing experience and you can afford to market in the right way to build that buyer group, right? So that's where this positioning exercise really matters.
Yeah, no. So yes, I think the mechanism of how you activate it across the buyer's journey is another thing. But it starts with what is the problem? Why does this problem matter? What's the business value of the problem? And I would actually highlight, from all my work with companies, I think the positioning and messaging thing is way too me too in most companies. And then the value measurement part is actually another area that's acutely broken in most companies.
Awesome. And so let's talk a little bit about measurement. So Omar, maybe you can give us a little bit about how in this age, right, we have so much more that we can do with AI.
Yeah.
We can measure many more things. So what are advanced frameworks, next generation proxies used to measure the impact of things that might have been unquantifiable in the go-to-market space, like brand affinity, authentic human connection, thought leadership? They're still looking at numbers.
Yeah.
Having a great experience at an event may not be enough, right? So how are you seeing companies take these intangible strategies and then turning them into something measurable?
So I'm going to say something a little bit sort of maybe controversial, but
Bring it.
yeah, I don't think AI is going to change the way that people are measuring much. And not because AI is not this innovative way. It's think of it this way. I think AI would make a good marketer better and a mediocre marketer will stay mediocre. And what I mean by that is they're saying that people that were already good at measuring or already had a good framework for measuring the value of what they were doing are using AI to get faster at putting that information out and more accurate at putting that information out. But AI on its own isn't giving us any new framework for what to do. So marketing 101 is still marketing 101, which is how many people did you reach and what did they think about you? And when they think about you, do they know what you do? Which is everything AJ has talked about. And people sort of don't do those bits. They jump to sort of the AI will help us prove the numbers. But the stuff that they need to figure out is everything that I just said.
That's right. Maybe it's not giving you a new metric, right? But
Yeah.
now you can personalize the content that you send to people or personalize
Yeah.
how you connect with people. How are you measuring that?
It's the way that you've always measured it, which is that how many people reached this, and when they think of a category, do I come to mind? And if there's a short list, am I on that short list? There's no amount of AI that's going to change that metric, especially in SaaS, in terms of what you should be measuring. And those are the only things that matter.
I'll push you a little bit on this. I mean, you're doing these amazing surveys, right? You're getting in depth with these B2B, mostly SaaS firms, right?
Yeah.
So, and you're tracking, I think, the difference between those who are leaders in the space versus those who are laggards in the space.
Yes.
So are you seeing data there that this personalization oriented strategy or this better positioning, or how are you seeing this in the numbers?
So the personalization bit, I don't want to speculate because I don't have the numbers on that to say that people who are personalizing are doing better. And I think other companies have done that. Here's what I can tell you about what the companies that are growing faster, that's what they're doing better. The number one thing is that they're spending more on marketing. That's sort of the one thing that's kind of the big separator. So companies that were growing faster, that's north of 20% and hit their revenue targets last year, those companies are spending sort of 10 to 12, sometimes even 13 to 15% on marketing. The companies that didn't hit their numbers are spending around 7 to 9% of their annual revenue on marketing. And if you get bigger than that, then the number sort of goes down. But if you're a B2B SaaS company that's in the 100 to 500 million annual range and you're spending in the single digits on marketing, that's going to hamper you. There was an era where, when we were getting better at digital, where you could do more with less, where you could put out more content and you could get more ads and you could personalize things. And there's a lot of good technology that helped us do that. I think we've reached the limit of doing more with less, because now when we've sort of cut marketing to the point that we can't actually sustain that same level of reaching eyeballs, which is the only thing that matters for marketing, is how many people are you reaching. The single biggest differentiator is that you can't sort of cut your way to growth. You can either choose to be an efficient organization and try to stay profitable, or you can try to grow beyond a certain limit. It's really, really, really hard. Not impossible, but really hard to cut your way and then achieve those growth figures. The second difference that I found was that companies that were growing were spending about sort of equal amounts of their marketing budget on brand marketing and demand marketing. Brand marketing is stuff that basically there's no click afterwards. It's purely awareness marketing, purely for eyeballs. We don't care what they did afterwards. We just want them to see the thing that we did. And demand generation, the way that I classified in this survey, is stuff that's more guaranteed to have them click on something, convert on something, take some sort of quick follow-up action, really demand capture. And I think in the past few years, because SaaS was such a hot category and people were buying software, we started to think that demand generation worked a lot better than it does. What happens is that you capture people that were already in market. And a lot of people were in market, especially post-COVID.
You're going after low-hanging fruit with demand.
Going after low-hanging fruit, and you capture a lot of that stuff. But that's
like a drug.
It's like a drug. John Miller called it a gumball machine, where it's like $1 in and $10 out. And what we found is that that well is drying up, and people neglected to do the top of the funnel stuff. And when you neglect the top of the funnel, the effects aren't immediate. They happen sort of 9, 10, 12 months later. But now we're sort of seeing that the people, if you look at the SaaS that's doing well, they're all incumbents. The folks that have a big brand presence, folks that got into a category, defined a category, and they're staying there. People are still talking about Salesforce and HubSpot. They're still talking about sort of the big players in the market. And if you think about your Fortune 500, it's really difficult to get them to go away from stuff that isn't like top of mind when it comes to brand. And that stuff matters, is what I tell startups now, is that if you're a category creator, you think you'll be creating a category, you can't neglect just like what Clay is doing. I got to admit, embarrassingly, I don't quite know what Clay does.
That's so different and special, but people love it. Yeah.
People love it, and I love their logo. Yeah, and they're everywhere. One day when someone says, hey, we're looking for a software for something go-to-market, etc., I'm like, go check out Clay. I don't know, maybe they'll work out. Not to plug them too much, but that's a great example of brand awareness.
Can I go back to the beginning of Omar's comment about spending on marketing for a moment? Because I actually think it's a really important point. What percentage of the buyer's journey is independent now versus, with a salesperson? It's about 80% independent. If you rewound 15 years to when the Challenger sale came out, the big data point was 57% of the buying process was over before ever talking to a salesperson. Now people are saying, well, net, it's probably 80% is the buyer doing their own homework, talking to their peers. They're not even going to, the analysts as much anymore. So, but what percentage of the budget is spent on, sales as a total go-to-market effort? It's still about 65 to 70%. That's actually down from...
I think in some of your studies, it was showing 70% is on sales.
Yeah, if you split, 70-30 split.
And like you're talking about Gen Z, nowadays Gen Z is even more about self-education than the Gen X buyer.
Well, so just look at the data again for a second there, and that is, if only 20% is really spent with sales teams, but you're spending 70% of your go-to-market resource on sales, well, that's a problem. But then you just say, let me see how the salespeople are doing. The performance distribution is incredibly skewed these days. The top performers are still top performers, but 60, 70% of the reps are not making quota. It's actually more like 70% of the reps are not making quota these days. And average attainment is way down. And it's increasingly bimodal. So you can actually just lob off the second half of the sales team, and you would probably only lose 10, 15% of bookings. So that's a big problem when it comes to resource allocation. So very much agree. There needs to be more spent on marketing, but it's got to be the right type of marketing. The things to think about are, it really is all along the buyer's journey. So start number one with, what's the problem? We talked about that. But then figure out, how do you actually move people along the buyer's journey? And I think this is where Salesforce really kind of nailed it back in 2010. And, I got to be a part of the team where I actually just kind of learned this from my colleagues. But we did these like CIO roundtables, and it was 12 to 15 executives. We'd bring in 3 existing customers from Salesforce who were CIOs who believed in the cloud, and then another, dozen who were on the journey. And 3-4 hours, it was very much thought leadership. It was very much an information exchange. That's what progressed the buyer's journey. And those are the winning types of programs.
That works today now. If you were to name like a couple, 2 or 3 of the, we know Salesforce, they're the giant. They're going to kick butt. Where Dreamforce is right around the corner. They're probably going to do it bigger and better than ever before. And a lot of the folks that are probably listening to us are saying, well, I'm not Salesforce.
Well, my service supply chain example, Rajiv, and that's a company well under 100 million revenue. Same thing applied. And that is, hey, let's get service supply chain leaders, let's get finance leaders together and talk about, hey, why does this problem matter? How do you solve it? How do you think about integrating this with a larger ERP? And it's the same exact principle. And that's what sort of works and progresses. It's the same thing that we're doing with like Go-to-Market Leaders Society dinners. It's like, hey, let's have a dinner table of 8 to 12 people. Let's have a couple of key topics. It might be GEO. It might be something else. And let's progress and go deep on that conversation point in kind of a structured manner. And that's what really kind of works.
Yeah, that's great. And then what do you do? Like now we know that this works, like Omar started it and you really built up on it about kind of going back to some previous things where you're creating exclusivity, right? So how do you get companies who are so used to going the other way to unlearn the old behavior, or they just get smashed in the head from their board?
Well, I think you just look at the data points on these programs. I mean, you look at SEO, the traffic's down significantly because people are on websites much less. You look at PPC and just the conversion and the efficiency rates are down significantly. So it's just like, hey, the incremental dollars don't make sense. And just search volume's down as well. You look at big trade shows, it's like, you're not getting the yield there either. So, attribution's not perfect, but there are a lot of these things that you can measure and you can just sort of see, even if you pick your attribution methodology and just say, whatever it is, let me just follow it longitudinally. You're seeing it just tank for a lot of these kinds of programs. And when that happens, you just naturally, logically say, all right, let me cut back what doesn't work and let me try to innovate on some things that will actually capture people's attention. Here's what I will tell you. I mean, companies have problems just as much as they ever have. And so the question is, what are those problems and how are you helping them? And how are you helping them think about it? And especially in this world of AI, companies succeed and, quote, sell stuff when their customers are struggling with high value problems. And there's massive disruption out there right now. So that creates actually a ton of opportunity as long as you can actually be perceived as the party that it can actually help them succeed.
That's right. So there's that whole notion of AI washing. There's new AI native companies. There's a lot of stuff there. Omar, do you see anything in the data about this? You said there's maybe a SaaS recession. Is that because of these emerging AI companies and folks potentially using these alternative engines to build solutions that supersede SaaS firms, or is it something else?
I don't think it's the case where people are building their own AI at scale. I think individuals are using AI agents to help themselves, and some companies are talking about some processes they've solved, but there's nothing in any interviews I've done, especially with companies that are of a decent size. Like if you're very small, you could do it. But if you're $100 million company, there's no sort of building of AI agents at a big scale. And part of that is sort of corporate culture. It's tough to get these things and get buy-in for people. Individuals are doing it. I wouldn't say that a company's doing it.
Okay, so people are scared. I know a number of VCs that are really concerned about their portfolio, but it's not necessarily translating yet. AJ, you want a quick point on this? Because I want to jump to my next one.
At the end of the day, AI is about use cases. It is not like, oh, use AI and your whole business transforms. To be honest, I would actually say this, the workflows of companies haven't changed very much. I mean, the workflow as an insurance company, it's still the same thing. But here's the issue. So much of the work in that workflow is manual, has high variance, and exists in big volumes. So if you can use AI to actually automate much more of that, that's a huge benefit that makes that workflow much more efficient. I would say the same thing when it comes to ABM and outbound. We were kind of talking about the point earlier about, well, what's the impact of personalization? Well, when I was at, Ring Central and we were doing outbound, we're like, oh, okay, we're saying, hey, you should buy a phone system on the cloud in 2016 because most people still had PBXs, at least in mid-market enterprise. And that worked to a degree, but it wasn't differentiated. If we said, hey, if I'm selling to a law firm, here's the value proposition. If I'm selling to an accounting firm, here's the value proposition. A construction firm, here's the value proposition of whatever, having any device and linking all these sites. The conversion rate went up 2 to 3x. But the problem was you just couldn't reliably do that for every micro industry that was out there. It was just too time consuming. When you think about the content and the, back then we were doing sequences and call scripts and all that stuff. It was just too much work. But now you can say, hey, you know what? There are 20 industries that I can sell horizontal software into. I can actually tailor to the 20 industries And I'm actually going to tailor to the 4 different personas, the finance persona, the operations persona, the whatever persona. And I can actually achieve all that because the AI tools make that possible. So does the AI itself just magically turn into massive bookings? The answer is no, because other people can do it as well. But it makes this part of the work much more automated. So I think you want to think about what are the use cases.
I think that's a great point to make. I mean, I can tell you at least before, when I would go into a meeting with a potential prospect or even a current client, it would take us a good amount of time, days, maybe weeks, to do the research and put together a messaging strategy. Now we can literally walk in and say, well, here's something I put together for you. And here's all your personas. Here's your industries. Here's your solution. Here's how we think you can reach the market better. And here's even a simulation of results. And you can be ready to go much faster. Now, there's a lot more work to do after that, but the richness that you can get.
You can walk in with way more insight is the short answer and stimulate a much better conversation. I'll give you one more example. There's this niche category called value selling software. It's like ROI business case kind of stuff. So there's a company out there which can actually analyze all your case studies and all your competitors' case studies and synthesize it into what are the key value points and which company actually does a better job on what types of metrics in terms of driving business value. And you can do that outside in just by analyzing all the case studies that exist on the web. And they can do this for any company. So now any company they go into, they go and do this analysis.
Preliminary analysis. Yeah, it's amazing.
Of their 5 competitors plus the company.
That's going to wake you up. Omar, is there something you want to add to that?
No, I think it's a fair point to say. And, I'm all on board with this kind of personalization. I think the key thing to recognize is most companies do not do it in the sophisticated way that both of you are describing it. They'll put in their first draft and use that as their personalization technique. I mean, I get emails all day long, people calling me Jennifer. So it's...
How did they get from Omar to Jennifer?
Yeah, you tell me. I mean, it's one thing if it was also a similar South Asian name, but it's a completely different paradigm. Yeah, so most people don't do that. And I think that's a huge part of the reason they don't do that is because of the constant pressure to do things quickly and at scale and not put that sort of strategy behind it, which is why I feel like your AI is only as good as the person who's developing the strategy for it.
You really have to sit back and think about it and get moving. All right, I'm going to move into our next section. I hope you guys have a little extra time because I have a bunch of stuff for both of you. And I think it's going to be super fun. So, okay, we're going to talk now about brand versus demand. I'm going to get your thoughts on this. So here we go. In the marketing world, a fierce debate is raging. On one side, you have the champions of demand gen who live and die by the numbers, ROI, the dreaded MQL, and immediate revenue. For them, marketing is a science of direct attribution. On the other side are believers in brand who argue that the real value lies in building long-term trust, recognition, and loyalty, things that don't always fit neatly into a spreadsheet. They see marketing as an art. We've compiled some interesting, provocative opinions that challenge the core assumptions of both camps. So here we go. I'm going to bring these up. I'm going to ask you to take a bit of a side. I know you can give very nuanced answers, but take a side. So here's the question. Brand marketing is a luxury expense designed as strategy. In a downturn, it's interesting. The first thing to cut is brand and advertising. And the last is demand gen because only demand directly contributes to the bottom line. Quick thoughts? Omar's shaking his head.
Completely disagree. It's like trying to drain your gas tank before you run a race. It makes no sense to me that you would call brand a luxury item when it's the fuel of growth. Yeah, I hard disagree.
All right. AJ, guys like you keep cutting ad spend during a recession. Go ahead, defend it.
I think the reason ad spend is getting cut, Rajiv, is because it's diminishing in its effectiveness. And that's what whatever attribution methodology you're using. So people will cut and should cut things that have less value. What I think is kind of key is just in this world of LLMs, people shortlist much more quickly. So if you're not getting shortlisted, you're not in the game. And that's where I think brand comes in, and it's sort of having a distinctive point of view. If you're not playing there and you're just running off of, all this funnel metrics, I think you're going to lose a lot of the opportunity. And you have to keep in mind the funnel metrics, for, mid to long sales cycle, you don't really see the outcome for
quite some time. Yeah.
6 to 12 months. So you may not really be seeing what's actually going on. So your other question earlier, I think the biggest incentive change that's required is actually just getting all go-to-market teams to measure the full funnel. And that is really kind of more bow tie-esque, to use the, Jocko from Winning by Design's terminology. So it's not just acquisition, it's very much focused on expansion and retention, which I think most companies, there's so much more data for expansion and retention, but it's leveraged so much less than the acquisition metrics. And I think there's way more juice to squeeze on expansion retention standpoint, but only if you focus on customers getting value. And that's the lack of sophistication on the right side of the bow tie is super diminished.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to ask you the next one. I'm going to have some fun with this. Now we're going to go the other way. Spending on demand gen is a fool's game. You're renting attention instead of owning it. A strong brand is the only long-term asset a company can build, making demand gen nothing more than a short-term fix.
I disagree with this strongly. I think you have to consider the whole buyer's journey. To me, brand is actually really critical in terms of getting into, I'm less the marketer that Omar is, but to me, I always think of it as more top of funnel and sort of getting into kind of the consideration game. And then there are things that you need to do to nurture that buyer's journey as you go through the funnel. And I think that's where a lot of the demand gen programs come in. But I think you need the brand up front.
Awesome. Omar, quick response.
No, I disagree. I completely, in the sense, I disagree with your statement. I agree with AJ. Like, look, there's no sort of having brand without demand. Those things don't work without each other. You can't cut one and then expect the other one to work. They're just different motions. They require different investments, different tactics. The biggest difference is that it's easier to measure demand. And so we over-index on the things that we can measure easily. And also it's quicker to measure it, right? Like you can measure brand, but the effects are longitudinal over many, many quarters as you see the effect of it. And sometimes that does mean cutting ad spend, not because you're cutting brand, it's because those ads aren't working on those channels. That's the way to sort of look at it. I'll give you an example. Cybersecurity, they drive me crazy because they mess up all my data because they're such an anomaly. They just don't do marketing the same way that everybody else does. Their marketing is very much event focused. It's relational. It's not spending ad spend, but they're still doing brand awareness. They're just doing it in a different way. And because that's what's working for them. The way that they get top of mind is by doing events and in-person stuff.
That totally makes sense. It's very different for that area, and it makes a lot of sense. Okay, here's the next one. Investing in brand is a moral obligation. In a world of aggressive, intrusive demand generation, a company has a duty to build a genuine connection with its audience, even if that connection can't be easily quantified.
Hard agree. I don't know if it's a moral obligation. It's business, whether that's moral or not. I mean, you could be selling a very immoral product and still have to build a brand. But it's kind of, I don't see how you exist without building that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think in a noisy world, you need to have a brand to actually sort of stand out. And if we go back to the most basics of marketing of like, awareness and consideration, I mean, that's what a brand gets you. It gets you in the game.
Awesome. Okay. The only reason brand building is valued is because it's impossible to measure. It's a convenient excuse for marketers who can't prove their ROI and a way to justify massive budgets without accountability.
Yeah, hard disagree. And I think we know where I'm going to fall on all these. But, I think about ROI and like think about the stuff that you love the most in the world. The music you listen to or the art that you appreciate. There's so many things in the world that are great, have no ROI or any quantifiable impact at all. But I think that's what people sort of conflate as marketing is art and therefore should not be quantified. And I don't think that's the case. I think you should quantify your efforts. And I think there's this idea that you can't quantify brand is also a misnomer. You can absolutely quantify brand. It just works differently in the way, and people have been doing it for years. You don't think Coca-Cola is quantifying its brand well before demand generation? Of course they are. It just works differently. So I disagree with that.
Great answer. Yeah. AJ, quick.
I think you very much can quantify brand. And to look at branded web traffic, I mean, that's quantification of brand. So I think there's very much an opportunity to do so.
Great answer. I'll wrap it up with this segment with this one. The entire brand versus demand debate is a false dichotomy. They're not two different strategies. They're the same thing. Every demand activity either strengthens or weakens the brand, and a strong brand is the single greatest driver of demand.
No, I would agree. I think if you look at any kind of buying decision that's made, there are just so many different kind of inputs across that buyer's journey. It could could be some content. It could be a website. It could be a phone call. It could be an email. It could be an event. It could be a case study. It could be a conference. It could be an analyst note. So these are all, they're just so many different pieces. I think it becomes a misnomer when you just try to say, hey, I'm going to look at the attribution of this particular asset or this particular campaign. When a customer makes a buying decision, that they probably had dozens of touch points from marketing, from sales, from others. And trying to, assign a discrete value on each one, I think it's a false science. And you have to think about it just much more holistically.
I know you don't want me to give nuanced answers, so I'm going to try to be as sort of one-sided on this
Have
as I
some
can.
fun with this. This is the last brand versus demand question. So
Got
just
it.
go.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, I think, yes, it is a false dichotomy because one feeds the other. But the debate is real. And the debate is real because there's pressures that are coming from a lot of different places. A lot of CMOs want to do things that are easily quantifiable. A lot of boards want to see results. A lot of CFOs want to see things that are sort of numbers based. And what that does is, whether they're trying to or not, what that does is it means that we end up over indexing on things where we can show the numbers a lot clearer. So while we know as marketing practitioners that that dichotomy is false, the debate is very real. And the choices that people have to make in terms of the activities that they have to choose, one or the other, is also very real. And so I want to sort of empathize with marketers who have to face that choice in terms of the kind of tactics that they want to invest in, because they feel like they have to come on one side of that or the other. So that's the only nuance that I would point out.
I would say that I've seen it with companies that are going from earlier stage companies as they move up the chain and get more and more mature. If you have numbers you got to hit for your board or for your VCs or your investors, and there is significant middle to bottom of funnel opportunity, it's just easier to do something that's very quantifiable. If you have a limited budget, it's easier to do that. You can do as what AJ suggests, have really good positioning, really good way of showing your product without having to spend so much on high level advertising and brand building. Think about a fintech product. If I need business loans, I need a freaking business loan and I need money right now. Who the brand is may or may not matter if I need money right now. But at a certain point, I'm going to want to go to folks who want a trusted relationship, a long-term relationship, want someone I can go back multiple times and get that lending and multiple financial services from. Well, then I need to trust you. And therefore, having a brand that's trusted and reasonable, that has a personality, et cetera, is someone I'm going to care about, I'm going to care for. Eventually, you'll have to do the numbers to show how one drives the other. And you can actually. You can show the explicit tie of your brand advertising, spend, marketing to reduced cost of acquisition numbers because of brand recognition. So it can be done. It just takes some sophistication.
And you can also look at trends as well. I mean, if you have a strong brand, you would expect a bunch of metrics to perform better. So win-loss rates, sales cycle duration, level of discounting, deal size. These are all factors to look at. And if they're below certain benchmarks, you've got a problem. Or if they're showing a decline, you've got a problem. And you've got to do something that's going to change the game. And it's not going to be just like campaign mix that's going to do that.
Right. So we need to get the B2B version of Cynthia Sweeney in. That'll instantly increase your demand. Okay. So here we go. Let's go to the Spark Tank. So you two are going to have a blast today. Today, we're thrilled to have Omar Akhtar, a marketing innovator with a fascinating journey that includes playing in a rock band before becoming a leading voice in B2B SaaS marketing benchmarks. We're also joined by AJ Gandhi, a go-to-market guru and community builder who's mastered the art of creating memorable experiences. Today, we've got a fun twist on our classic format that taps into the energy and cultural impact of music festivals. Why festivals? You both have a deep love for live music, and we thought this would be a fun way to play with something you both share a passion for, not related to B2B benchmarks. Here's how it works. I'll present you with 3 statements about music festivals. 2 of them are absolutely true, no matter how crazy they sound. One is completely fabricated, designed to sound just plausible enough to fool you. Your job is to spot the lie. After each round, I'll count down 3, 2, 1, and you'll both reveal which statement you think is fake. So you have to do it at the same time and you can't cheat from each other. So Omar, AJ, you ready to separate fact from fiction?
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
Let's go. It's music festival time. Remember, 2 truths and a lie, so 2 are true. Here's number 1. At Bonnaroo, the Centeroo fountain is known as a, quote, perpetual source of happy times. Every year, it turns into a wild pool party with attendees in swimsuits, or sometimes not, cooling off, dancing, and splashing in the illuminated water during the hottest days of the festival. Here's number 2. During Burning Man 2025 this year, attendees participated in a big wheel dildo joust, an annual not safe for work event where costume competitors race on oversized tricycles in playful ruckus battles for glory, watched by laughing crowds at the edge of the playa. Number 3, at Coachella 2017, festival organizers accidentally set off thousands of biodegradable bubbles filled with colored glitter, blanketing the main stage and leading to a rushed cleanup as headliners performed their sets. So you ready? We got Bonnaroo, Burning Man, and Coachella. You ready? All right, I got 1 for AJ and 3 for Omar. So the AJ thought Bonnaroo was false. Omar thought Coachella was false. And guess what? Omar, you win this round.
All right. Yeah.
Sounds like
It
it
was-
was
Yeah.
Virgin.
I decided to go with the most family friendly option, was obviously the one that was not true. Yeah.
Once again. That's a good way of thinking about it.
I think we know anything and everything happens at Burning Man. So.
That's right, especially Burning Man. So while Coachella has featured elaborate art installations and occasional outlandish moments, there's no record of a glitter bubble mishap on the main stage. The Centeroo, or as it's informally known for its pool party atmosphere, festival goers often show up in swimsuits, and sometimes less, and turn the fountain area into a lively communal celebration between music sets. And then the quote-unquote big wheel dildo joust is actually a legit thing, where participants ride in oversized toy tricycles, don silly costumes, and participate in lighthearted jousts for the enjoyment of festival crowds. So here we go.
Oh,
All right, round 2. I got Omar 1. Here we go. Number 1, at Lollapalooza 1995. Testing your memory. The band Pavement was pelted with mud and sod by the crowd during their set, prompting guitarist Scott Canberg to flip off and then moon the audience before stomping off stage, an infamous example of festival antics. Number 2, Coachella 2018 went TikTok viral after a group of influencers attempted to camp inside the festival's signature flower installations, leading to a short-lived fairy camper, #FairyCamper mini trend, and safety warnings from organizers. 3, a girl attending Mysteryland 2015 jumped off a 30-foot railing, survived only with minor injuries, and became a local festival legend, with organizers later referencing her in the official event guide. I got Lollapalooza, Coachella, and Mysteryland. Here we go. Which one's false? 3, 2, 1. Okay, I got 2 3s. Do you want to say why you think it was 3?
I don't think the lawyers let you celebrate someone who jumps off a 30-foot platform.
Well, guess what? Guess what? You're both wrong. Number 2 is false.
oh man. Oh, of course number 2 would be false because TikTok wasn't around in 2018. I should have known that. Yeah.
While Coachella frequently trends on social media with elaborate influencer content and ephemeral micro trends, there's no reports of people successfully camping inside the flower installations or any resulting official safety warning.
I forgot what life was like before influencers ruined everything. So, yeah.
So Lollapalooza's notorious pavement incident in 1995 included crowd hostility, mudslinging, and Canberg's mooning response, cited in multiple Lollapalooza retrospectives.
That I can imagine.
And apparently number 3, 2015, notorious incident where a young woman survived a massive jump and was referenced in festival literature thereafter. So, all right, here comes number 3. AJ, you have a good shot at catching up here.
You should.
All right, here's number 1. Here's the number 1 potential lie. Summerfest in Milwaukee regularly draws between 800,000 and 1 million attendees and is officially recognized as the world's largest music festival by the Guinness World Book of Records. Number 2, at Outside Lands 2014, a performer rolled across the crowd in a giant inflatable hamster ball, creating a surreal moment that festival goers still talk about today as one of the wildest and most unexpected acts in event history. Then there's number 3. At EDC, the main stage was once made entirely of ice that melted during performances, forcing DJ sets to move indoors. So we have Summerfest, Outside Lands, and EDC. So you ready?
Oh man, this is a tough one. Yeah.
It is a hard one. 3, 2, 1. I got a split decision here. So AJ is 3, Omar is 1. AJ, why'd you pick 3?
Well, I think 1 is true just because it's so damn cold in Wisconsin that they celebrate the summers like there's no tomorrow. And I've heard actually that it's an extraordinary summer experience in Milwaukee at Summerfest. I think 3 is a lie just because I imagine a stage being pretty massive and for that to be completely made of ice and melt within the period cleanly that you can actually have a show. It just seems like it would just be completely chaotic. I can't imagine anyone would ever really plan to do that.
All right. Well, guess what, AJ? Your logic is absolutely correct. Number 3 is
Oh,
false.
yay.
Finally.
I got a tie.
I'm actually kind of relieved that that's the case. That's good to know that there wasn't an ice stage. Yeah.
While EDC is famous for elaborate and creative stage designs and productions, there's never been a stage made of ice that melted and forced to move indoors. You know why? Because the festival takes place outdoors in Las Vegas. So it'd be a little hard to handle desert climate.
Mm-hmm.
But AJ's totally right. Summerfest regularly exceeds 800,000 people over its 11-day run. And Outside Lands 2014 had a moment where the artist rolled over fans inside of a giant inflatable hamster ball. So
I think that happens at any Outside Lands.
it's just a thing, right? So you've probably seen that, right? You've been to Outside Lands.
It seems like
Okay.
that's
It's what?
it seems like that's become a thing, the giant hamster ball things.
All right, here's the tiebreaker.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, pressure's on.
So this is the main tie. I don't even have to multiply the points on this. So here we go. This is all about Governor's Ball. So I hope you guys know about this.
In New York, right? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So at Governor's Ball 2017, a street performer sneaked onto the main stage during a headline act and began juggling flaming torches, captivating the crowd until a security officer escorted him off. The incident sparked a viral video and fueled rumors that Governor's Ball had unofficially started a guerrilla performance tradition. Number 2, at Governor's Ball 2024, singer Chappelle Roan made a theatrical entrance emerging from a giant apple statue modeled after the Statue of Liberty, puffing on a blunt, which quickly became one of the most talked about moments of the festival. Number 3, in 2016, due to heavy rain, the last day of Governor's Ball was canceled, prompting Kanye West to announce a last-minute show at the 1,350-person capacity venue in Manhattan, which led to chaos as thousands showed up, overwhelming the small venue's capacity. So all 3 are Governor's Ball.
What was the first one again?
The first one is a street performer sneaked onto the main stage during a headline act and began juggling flaming torches, captivating the crowd until security escorted him off. So it was a viral video and had officially started this notion of a guerrilla performance tradition. So that was number 1. Number 2 is singer Chappelle Roan, theatrical entrance, giant statue modeled after the Statue of Liberty while smoking. And then number 3 was Kanye West. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. At least I got different answers. 1 and 2. So AJ's 1, Omar's 2. Omar, why do you believe 2 is right? 2 is the false answer.
I don't know. I feel like I know Chapel Roan, and like coming out of a giant apple tracks, but smoking a blunt while coming out of a giant apple, I feel like that's a bit. It's too many things thrown in the same performance. So, and the other 2 just sound plausible. Like, you know, Kanye West would do something reckless like that, and I would imagine that guerrilla sort of performers is a thing. So that's where I went.
All right, AJ, defend your point of view.
I think there's too much security in New York. And as a result, you're just not going to let somebody get on stage and actually perform. I think the moment that they would get on stage, that they would get whisked off immediately.
All right. One of you got the correct answer. And so there is a winner. And today, live from Florence, is AJ. You're the winner. All right.
That's some sound logic.
Chapel Rowan's dramatic Statue of Liberty Apple entrance was widely covered in press and social media, making her breakout Governor's Ball moment in 2024. And rain cancellations are a part of Governor's Ball history, with 2016's final day cancellation resulting in Kanye West's attempt at an impromptu concert in Manhattan, documented by multiple news sources. AJ, you're the winner, but that was a lot of fun, and kudos to my staff.
Wow, good.
Coming up with some amazing,
that was so much fun.
ones. All right, we're going to go to personal closers. So I'm going to throw you a topic. You can choose to comment on it. I would ask you to give me really quick answers. So you ready? I'm going to start with AJ, then go to Omar on this one. What's something you used to really be into that now you find completely baffling about your past self?
I used to like working on spreadsheets.
Omar, that's self-explanatory, by the way.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a really tough one. I guess I used to really be into fashion, and I don't think that's the case anymore, clearly.
You lost your love if you don't read People magazine or whatever that is, or Cosmopolitan or Vanity Fair.
Yeah, just sort of like the obsession with keeping up with it is like, I find myself thinking, wow, why was this so important? Yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense.
I call my friends for that kind of advice. So,
yeah.
And I'm about 10 years behind. All right, Omar, you start on this one. If you had to choose a theme song that plays every time you walk into a room, what would it be, and what energy are you trying to bring?
Gosh, you really should give me some more time to think about this. So there's a punk rock band called The Hives, and they have a song called Come On. And it is just 2 words. The whole song is just come on. And it's just this raucous, like 2-minute blast of them just yelling, come on, come on, come on, come on. And I listen to it almost every day when I'm trying to pump myself up. It's my hype song. It's perfect amount of time for me to enter a room, play it. It's over in less than 2 minutes. It's only 2 words, gets the message across. That would be my song. Yeah.
What a great answer. AJ.
Let's see. I think it would be Get What You Give by the New Radicals. Just fabulous.
Good one.
What energy you're trying to bring to it?
If you kind of hear the lyrics to the song, it's about overcoming some hardships and like doing the right thing. And when you do the right thing, your life becomes way better. Those to me are kind of inspiring words.
Beautiful. All right, Omar, here we go. If you had to share your expertise on something you love that has nothing to do with work, what would you teach?
Cooking. I tend to get a little nerdy about cooking techniques and ingredients and being kind of insufferable about different kind of cuisines and restaurants. So yeah, if you want to lecture on the best way to cook a steak that's not just throwing it on a grill, then I'm your guy.
All right. So you are really good at it then.
No, I didn't say I was good at it. I said I'll lecture you on it. Didn't mean I'm good at it. Yeah. There's a difference. Yeah.
All right. There's the teach and there's the do, right? Yes.
Yeah.
That all right. AJ, if you could be guaranteed to be really good at one thing that you're currently terrible at, what would you choose?
I would want to be a Cy Young baseball pitcher. That's like, I think it's the most commanding role in sports. And I just think it's like the coolest job ever. It's like you have a 3-hour baseball game and you basically command the mound for like an hour and a half of it and just mow people down. I think it's the most powerful position in all of sports.
I love it. That's a great answer. All the attention's on you. The whole game depends on you. You got to precisely locate. You got to study your batters. It's beautiful. Omar, what's a piece of technology from your childhood that you genuinely miss? And what would you bring back if you could?
iPods. I think about my iPod so much more. And for whatever reason, my phone just isn't the same thing. That iPod was the most cherished piece of technology I've ever owned. It had 2,000 songs, but they were all picked by me, curated songs that I would listen to over and over again, never get tired of it. And I just managed to hold it, take it with me everywhere. And it was such a personal statement to have that sort of in the back of my pocket. And my phone it's not the same thing that I can have access to every piece of music in the world in my phone. It's just not the same. And so I really miss my iPod.
You miss the ability to curate it. It's your device. Yeah. It's personal to you.
Yeah, you choose its color, just to feel the weight of it.
There's something about the wheel, right?
Yeah, nothing has come close to technology that I love as much as an iPod. Yeah.
Great answer. All right, AJ, what's a rule or boundary you've set for yourself that other people think is weird? but you're convinced makes your life better.
I think I have to host 2 to 4 events per month to feel whole. So I think most people think I'm crazy for
You
all the
are
things I
crazy.
host between luxury social events, go-to-market dinners, paella parties.
Watches and whiskey.
Yeah, watches and whiskey is what's coming up. It's fun. I just like being around great people. It's such a busy, crazy, noisy world. What I think you need to do is create truly distinctive, special experiences, and that's what brings people out.
Hear, hear. I think that's great. Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's even a conventional wisdom breaker. Who would say that they need to have 4 events a month to feel whole? I mean, sometimes I think you have like 8. It's crazy. So I just want to thank both of you for spending all that time today, sharing your experiences, your wisdom, your learnings, your research. I deeply appreciate how much time and effort you guys put into this whole field of go-to-market. I love learning about what makes people buy, what gets them there. So having the two of you here, just a treat, how thoughtful you both are and how interesting you are about it. So thank you. Thank you both for spending time with us.
No, thank you, Rajiv. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, it was great. Great conversation.
Wasn't that a fun conversation? If you are into what makes people tick and how companies can build themselves up in this rapidly changing technology environment, there's so much here, especially in this AI-driven world. So Omar was talking about how old is new again, that the tactics of digital marketing, which we love so well and do use so much, in a way have been overused and don't differentiate. And so they need to complement what's the more personal aspects of connecting companies together. So you take your brand, you have a distinctive level of positioning, you have a distinctive view of the world, and then you make that case on a person-to-person basis in events, in dinners, in curated situations. But the problem has to be big enough for you to have those discussions with people. So it's about putting it all together. And then what you would think is not scalable has to become scalable. And it's what's working for those companies that are growing faster than others. I think the other point about AI and personalization, it's stuff that we've covered somewhat before, but AJ, I think, laid it out really well. And when I'm talking about those 20 industries and the 5 personas, I can build content about it at scale and build these sequences and the related digital marketing around it to really enhance the experience and really get people to the end. So tons of learning there. And then the whole notion of brand versus demand. At my company, we actually spend more on brand than demand, even though we're building demand and brand for so many companies. And so one has to reinforce the other. And we forced a debate there, but really it's about putting them all together. But the pressure is still real. If you are in a company and you got to hit your numbers, it's going to be easier to do what's measurable. But you have to have a strong enough management team and a strong enough group of fellow go-to-market executives that are willing to pull together with you to help make the case for how brand and demand work together to drive current and future success. So lots of great stuff there. And I know I do a lot of events with AJ, but he definitely outpaces me. And who knew that he just needs that to make his clock tick? And it tells you a lot about a person you know so well. And I think it's because he likes connecting with unique people. And that's what these events give him. Love having both guests here. I hope you go to the Benchmarker report and subscribe to it. It's actually surprisingly very reasonable to get a lot of data about marketing for B2B SaaS firms. And of course, take a look at Go-to-Market Leader Society. And if you can, please come or sponsor some of the events there. I've gotten so much from it. We sponsor it at Position Squared and we also lead it. We do the website. We do a lot for it because it's really an amazing way for people to connect and build long-lasting business and personal relationships. So this show is produced by Sandeep Parikh and Anand Shah. Production assistance by Taran Talley, as well as Ria Bhuta. It's edited by Laura Ballant. I'm your host, Rajiv Parikh from Position Squared. We're a leading AI-driven growth marketing agency based in Silicon Valley. Come visit us at position2.com. This has been an Effin' Funny production, and we'll catch you next time. And remember, folks, be ever curious.